If you don't know this face, you've almost certainly seen some of his work, whether it's in the movies or whether it's on television. His name is J.J. Abrams, and he's really dominating at the last decade or more. He's been very dominant in the entertainment industry. Now, Hermeticism, as above, so below, Hermes Trismegistus, the Esoteric. Now, in previous videos, I've gone into some detail how certain architects, certain artists dominate and get prime positions. Norman Foster being one of them, and I.M. Pei, who is now aging. So he's, well, for instance, the Louvre Pyramid, amongst others. Now, I'll put some links in the videos that I've done in the description, and I'll put some other links to some other important videos in the description. Tony Rosenthal, the sculptor. Done some videos on him, and he'll be in there. But first, let's have a look at Isaac Newton. Now, recently I posted a 7-part series in regards to alchemy, alchemical symbols, and how these alchemists have been so important in the development of our modern world, Isaac Newton being none the least of them. Now, it's sort of known but not discussed too often, but he was an alchemist. And, well, for instance, he had a belief, he had a small library, but he had a belief that ancient legends, such as from the Bible, ancient Greek legends, were actually alchemical recipes. And, for instance, Vulcan found his wife Venus in bed with Mars, and he cast a net on them and hung them to the ceiling. Baby Perseus, saved by with the net. And so, but it actually turns out that this is an alchemical recipe. Venus, copper, plus iron, Mars, plus Vulcan equals the net. And this is a substance, and recently experimental reconstructions of that have shown that there is some interest of it. Now, the net in itself is said to be one piece of a philosopher's stone. Forget all this Hollywood stuff in regards to alchemy. It's something quite different. But we're going to connect Isaac Newton back to J.J. Abrams, and, well, for instance, recently Star Wars, Star Trek was some of his shows. But if we go back roughly 15 years, and the TV show ALIAS starring Jennifer Garner, Fringe was one of my beautiful show, excellent show. I loved it, and I got lost in watching this from the first few episodes, and then drifted off. But Lost was another one, and Lost especially was very controversial. One of those water cooler things. But recently, Into Darkness, the Star Trek as well, and these are just some of them. I'm going to put some links in the description. Please watch them, as well as some videos related. But we're going to have first look at ALIAS. So it was basically about the intelligence networks, spy agencies, but the running theme underneath it was I think he was 14th or 15th century fictional character by the name of Milo Rambaldi. Now, not only was he a very, very clever inventor, he was well into prophecy, but what happened was that throughout the series they were trying to find clues, find his manuscripts, and find inventions that he had made previously. And as the series come to an end, it was discovered that each of these amazing creations left by Rambaldi were actually not individual, they were part of a larger machine. You had to put these pieces together. Very much in the same vein of Isaac Newton, alchemy, and that the Philosopher's Stone, the net, was just the first part of the Philosopher's Stone. Now, this symbol is the one like on Rambaldi's tomb, and even his inventions that he left behind. Very close, very reminiscent to the eye. And so, just a flashback, the Philosopher's Stone, the first piece of constructing it was the net, which was based on an ancient Greek legend in regards to Vulcan, Venus and Mars, or fire, copper and iron. Astronomical symbols such as Venus and Mars are also chemical symbols for the elements, and Vulcan, fire, being how you fuse them. So basically melting them together. Now, reconstructions have shown that it fits the pattern. It's a silvery net against the dark sky, just as described by Isaac Newton. But now we'll have a look at the show Fringe, which is about, well, fringe science, and yeah, well, the tinfoil hat. So a very, very really entertaining show. I liked it, but it was also had a lot of really cool themes. Some would say pseudo-scientific themes, but alternate dimensions, all this type of thing. But you might notice the screen there, and this is a. We're going to have a look at a clip soon, and this is a shot from that clip. But other people, just like as we've lost, which I'll put links in the description, fans have been uncovering these links, these connections. He's very, very clever, J.J. Abrams and his team. Very, very clever indeed, and they're hiding in plain sight many things, and in their shows, but also off the screen in websites and fictional companies and fictional MySpace accounts, this type of thing. And again, please check the links in the description. I'm going to have some related videos of my own, but there'll be a few at the top which are based on fans who have been looking into and looking at the connections that repeated. But for instance, here you see on the screen, we see this spiral, and if you're number-minded, you might notice the equation which appears there. So, especially between the ad breaks, the opening credits, and between the ad breaks, they would flash certain images. And one of them here, we see a seahorse, and you might notice that spiral in its belly. A ram's horn, and if you pay close attention to the numbers which run along that ram's horn, very significant, which is mentioned more than a few times in the show, and the symbol itself is important. And also this frog, and I say frog with PH because we have the theta or the phi symbol, the 21st letter of the alphabet. Now let's have a look at a clip.
Why would anyone develop technology that would cause time collisions?
I don't know. Why would Oppenheimer invent a bomb?
You think this is a weapon?
No, I don't know that. I hope not, but regardless, the neutron pulse has to come from somewhere in the vicinity of these two time bubble events. The fire and the train crossing. If we could find some kind of pattern, then maybe we could locate the source.
Yeah, but 2 points isn't really very much to go on.
How about 4? I just got 2 new reports. A perfect circle of trees suddenly appeared in a parking garage in Chestnut Hill. Shortly after, an open pit filled with rotting garbage suddenly appeared in the 8th hole of the Franklin Park golf course. The course was built on top of the landfill.
Let me guess, 4 years ago.
Yeah, but look at it. It's still completely random to my eyes. There's no way to...
I am ready to present a theory. Snails. Nautilus shells. Ram's horns. These all have one thing in common. Fibonacci's golden spiral.
I'll be damned, Walter. That's it.
I believe the source of these time slips must be located in the center of the spiral. You want to search a 3-square-mile area in the vicinity of Brookline.
So both Walter with the tinfoil hat and Walternate, which was his doppelganger in an alternate dimension, were very much into the golden ratio, the golden mean. Phi, the divine proportion, is its another name. And so we see on the screen, and there we see the spiral, which emerges from the Fibonacci numbers. I've done a little bit of a close-up, so you can also see that symbol, the circle with a line through it, just like in the frog, PH frog. And the same spiral, which appears on the seahorse, and there we can see just another thing. Now this proportion, this spiral, is not just some random non-important thing. It's hugely important. It's one of the proportions which defines so much of nature, not just shells, but also sunflowers, hurricanes, galaxies. So much defines so much of our natural world. But the horn there, so I've written a number out for you, 1.618033998 That's the golden mean, the perfect description of the golden mean, and it's written there on the horn. The frog has the phi, and the seahorse has the Fibonacci spiral, as in the Fibonacci numbers. Fibonacci introduced Hindu-Arabic, or popularized Hindu-Arabic numbers in the Western world. Now, the pentagon and the pentagram are the perfect representation of phi geometrically. And also, the angle 108 is one of the defining of both the pentagon and the pentagram, and 108 in trig brings us to the golden number. The pilot episode of Fringe, the main side character, Morgan Stig, was passenger 108 on the plane. So we have the golden ratio, which leads us to the pentagram and the 108 degrees. And so Fringe is we're just touching the iceberg, because we're going to look how these connections go. And next we're going to have a look at the TV show Lost, which was, again, like the water cooler shows. Everyone was talking about it, especially people were trying to understand the meaning of it and what did the last scene was, and all sorts of ideas and stuff come around. But, well, there's something very, very important running throughout the whole series, not just the last episode. They planned this from the start, and it's full of awesome info. Now there's a website, and again, this will be the link in the description, and this points details how often the number 108 appears throughout the series. We'll have a look at that, but it's undeniable that he is fascinated with this number 108. It resonates, and I choose resonates, throughout the whole series in Lost. It's one of these hidden in plain sight things, and the number 108 is hugely important in the esoteric Hermeticism, and we'll have a look at that at the moment, because if you're not aware of it, the number 108 defines your life in ways that you couldn't possibly imagine unless you've been studying this for some time. And the architecture, such as that by Ian Payne, Norman Foster, but also going back to Washington DC, Canberra, Brasilia, Astana, state capitals all across America, the street plans all across America, all across Australia, all across Canada, and back in time to Europe, the great cathedrals of Europe, ancient temples in Egypt, Sumer, and India. And these themes, these ancient themes, are repeated throughout the show. It's not just a number, it's not just some coinky-dinky that has no significance, it's not just a modern fascination. This is a part of an ancient fascination connected to Rosicrucians, Freemasons, and these types of organisations. And we're going to see that quite clearly beyond dispute. Some people might not like it, and they might say, well, it's coincidence, I'm seeing things, tinfoil hat. Well, buckle up, because you're gonna get your mind blown, and if you don't, well, I'd have to say that you have a cognitive dissonance. That's usually used to push on the people who have so-called conspiracy theorists and the so-called rational skeptic. Well, they suffer from cognitive dissonance as well in so many ways, and it's essentially a denial. And we'll have a look, because it's not just this J.J. Abrams, it's the architecture across the world, across time, still being used now. Again, Washington, all of the state capitals in America, all across Australia, all across New Zealand, Canada, going throughout the world. Now, quick flashback. So we established the connections in Fringe, especially in regards to the golden ratio, and 108. You might say, well, that's an accident. Well, in Lost, for instance, when they opened a hatch, and this opened a whole mystery. But what they found was a timer, and every 108 minutes the timer had to be reset. And when it came to the end, we see these Egyptian hieroglyphs. Now, the Egyptian themes in both run throughout the show, and especially in number, and we're going to have a look beyond doubt. Now, for instance, when they choose a scene, they don't just turn the clock on and it just happened to be 108. No, this is design. Set designers do this. It's in so many other shows. Now, for instance, control box there, like, again, another connection to 108. It's done like someone painted this, someone ordered this. This is not by accident. Now, the lottery ticket, which was one of the main themes, again running throughout the show, well, you add the numbers up and they add up to 108. And so we have the magic Powerball number of 42, and the others add up to 66. 66 and 42. Hold your hats. We're gonna come right back to everything again, because this creates a 7 to 11 or 11 to 7 ratio, and that just happens to be the proportions of the Great Pyramid. And there we see, so half pi, 22 over 7 is the best whole number approximation of pi, and the slope angle of the Great Pyramid is 1.6181818, which is from the Fibonacci numbers 89 over 55. Now, the next Fibonacci number after 89 is 144. In Australia, the street plans are 66 feet wide with a 42 feet carriageway, which is 144 inches or 144 Cremona palm. This is just a quick sample. So the street plans of Australia, but also pieces of art such as Cloudgate in Chicago, which is by Anish Kapoor, who puts the 5 proportions Fibonacci numbers in all of his things. Now, in regards to the number 42 books of Hermes Trismegistus, Ancient Egypt, the Bible, a beautiful number in maths as well, Kabbalist traditions. It's the essential. It's one of the essential numbers in regards to this. Now, they found a video which was an orientation video, which explained that whoever was operating the clock, they would be replaced every 540 days. 540 degrees describes a pentagon, 108 times 5. Now, there was an hourglass which ran for 1 minute and 8 seconds. And of course 108 degrees, and so a pentagon describes phi, and 108 degrees being the basis of that. One of the characters spent time living in a monastery and brewing wine, and there were 108 cases of wine that he created, was ordered. There was a lighthouse. Now they changed the device to 108 degrees, and Wallace, which was an important character at that moment, they happened to notice his name at 108. Continual. This is part of a plan. He's passing something on. Now, again, if you think this is just the beginning, that this is all a coincidence, well, okay. Now, why is number 108 so important? Well, in the Far East, in literature such as the Journey to the West, or the 108 Stars of Destiny, 36 heavenly stars and 72 earthly fiends. Vishnu, 108 symbols, 108 sun salutations in yoga, the 108 beads on the Japamala, and in the chakras, pressure points, 108. And you see that octagon? Well, again, the Dharma initiative, Dharma being very Eastern, and again, we see that pattern, 108 once more. Now, okay, you might think, well, I don't care about this, it's got nothing to do with me. Well, 108 defines your life. Now, for instance, Buddhists, 108 symbols on each of Buddha's feet when he died. Buddhist temples, 108 continually. Japanese Buddhists ring the bell 108 times. Buddha asked 108 questions, 108 statements. In the Yugas, again, the Tetra Yuga has like the entry period, 108,000 years, and 1,080,000 years, and then the exit, 108,000 years. Well, that's got nothing to do with me. You might think, well, the Epic of Gilgamesh, which is the oldest description of a flood, 108, repeated throughout it. New Jerusalem from the Bible, that just turns out to be 10800 Royal Babylonian grains, the edge length of it. Now that's, again, I've done some videos, I'll try to remember to put the description in there. Ancient weights and measures, going back to Greco-Roman times, even the Byzantine period, and even through to the beginning of a medieval period, 108. Well, you think, well, it's got nothing to do with me. Well, the yard, 108 barleycorn describe a yard. But like wood and beer and wine, 108 gallons, 108 cubic feet, and still to this day, full screen definition, 1080 FM and AM. Here, especially here in Australia, we're so into this, it's unbelievable. It's not in just our streets, not in our buildings, everywhere. Now, 108, the octagon, just like the Dharma initiative program and the 108 chakras, well, 1,080 degrees, pentagon, squares, vesica, even the 1 meter pendulum, which describes a second, 108,000 seconds. Now, 1080 miles lunar radius, or in the long foot, 10800. Multiply that by 108, you get the distance from the Earth to the Moon. Multiply the diameter of the Sun times 108, you get the distance Sun to the Earth. 108 nautical miles is the most you can see of the Earth. What's the polar diameter of Saturn? How many days are for Saturn to orbit? Multiply the diameter of the Sun by 1080, you get the distance from the Sun to Saturn. 1 to the first times 2 to the first times 3 to the third equals 108. This just beautiful. Now it's all over the place. Now this isn't the end. Okay, so another important theme in regards to this was the character Locke, who was essentially the shaman in the show. Now he was doing a crossword with 108 questions. Question 42, Enkidu's friend. Who's Enkidu's friend? That's Gilgamesh, as in the Epic of Gilgamesh. We talked about that earlier, the Ark of Utnapishtim. Gilgamesh's ancestor was the equivalent of Noah. A great flood, he built an ark and survived the flood. And well, the description of that from Tablet 11, Epic of Gilgamesh, he describes the bitumen, the pitch, the porters, even the amount of oil which goes in there. 10,800, 108, 108. Now at 120 cubits wide, long and high, gives us maximum visible edge length of 1,080 cubits, amongst many other things. I'll put that video in the description, because just like New Jerusalem, the Ark of Utnapishtim is a conversion stone between multiple sets of weights and measures, including modern, going back to ancient times. Now, when they found the hatch, they went down and they noticed some graffiti. Well, 108 and 108 in that where the sun is there. This is just, again, the beginning. Now, you might notice there's fishes around there. Well, the ichthus is the original symbol of Christianity, not the cross, the ichthus. And now you might think, well, it's just fishes, it's got nothing to do with that. Well, on the bottom right-hand side, what do we have? We have a net. 153 fishes is described in the miraculous draft of fishes in the Bible. 153, 265 over 153 is the best whole number approximate of a square root of 3, and those are the proportions in the vesica. It's the square root of 3 exactly. Best whole numbers, 265 over 153. Now, 108 questions in the crossword. Well, Buddha asked 108 questions, made 108 statements, 108 feet on each of his symbols. We touched on that earlier. But 108, now 42. 42 appears once more. The question, the highlighted question, the important question is Gilgamesh's, Enkidu's friend, is Gilgamesh from the Epic of Gilgamesh, the oldest story, probably written down story that there is. And of course, just as a reminder, books of Hermes Trismegistus, Kabbalist, multiple times in the Bible, in the Egyptian Book of the Dead, multiple times in there. And again, with three-dimensional connections as well in regards to magic squares being very important. Now, Sydney Masonic Centre has an example, has a artwork there in the lobby, 153 panels. You might consider this an accident, but it's not, because in other videos I've detailed this across the world multiple times, especially like here in Australia, in Paris, in all these other places now, because the Louvre Pyramid, designed by IMP, has 7-11 proportions. I mentioned that before. The 7-11 has built into the lottery ticket, built into the street plans of, again, all across Australia, America, Canada, New Zealand, and elsewhere. Now, on each of the sides of the Louvre Pyramid, there are 153 rhombi, not including the entrance. That's something different, but that's a bit of but still, because that will actually bring us to 666. But the pyramid, Louvre Pyramid itself, built in proportion to a replica of a Great Pyramid, just scaled down, 108 and 45. 108 plus 45 is 153, and the square root of 153 is 12.36931. Why is that important? Well, it goes back because this is a very Masonic number. It's very important in architecture, in really, really important structures, not just some random building. I mean, like monuments, cathedrals, parliament buildings, these types of things. And of course, the ichthus and the vesica, the fish as well. So that's it, the vesica pisces, the bladder or the vessel of the fish. Another reference back. Now, even that you'll find in Chartres Cathedral, all these other places. It's one of the standard oldest Christian symbols. Usually see Jesus inside the fish, the vesica. Now, why is the square root of 153 important? Because it's the number of synodic months per year, full moons per year. A synodic month is one orbit of the moon around the Earth in relation to the sun, and that happens every 29.53 days, give or take a fraction, because of the elliptical nature of things. Now, if you go and just Google your first number, you're going to get a number and you go, well, it doesn't exactly match. Well, you have to include elliptical orbits. It's bang smack on the average. Now, another interesting thing, 29.53 days. Now, if I multiply the diameter of the Earth by 29.53, I get the distance from the Earth to the moon. Just like 108 times the diameter of the moon is the distance from the moon to the Earth, 29.53 times the diameter of the Earth is the distance from the Earth to the moon. Did I mention it's Masonic? You might think, well, I'm seeing things. It's not. Well, it bloody well is. Now, the sun, the Earth, and the moon, as well as the stars, the background you'll see in the stars, but the sun, Earth, and moon, the synodic month, sun, Earth, and moon. And here we see an example of a Freemasonic tracing board. I haven't filled it all out, but you get the basic points there. Sun, Earth, moon, the pentagram, which describes, of course, the phi proportions amongst many other things that is included in there. And sun, earth, moon, and stars are actually the larger part. So, well, we see the sun, we're 180s. That's one of the standard themes on Masonic tracing boards. Rosicrucians, all of these esoteric organizations going back centuries and centuries and centuries. We also see the moon. So just above where I've written moon, you can see the moon is there. Now that black part, you can see if you look at it, there's stars there as well. But the two pillars on the tracing board is the celestial and the terrestrial sphere. The terrestrial sphere is the Earth, terrestrial, terra. That's what it is. And the other column is the celestial sphere. It's usually got a picture of the zodiac, the 12 signs, of the zodiac, and that represents the stars: sun, earth, moon, and stars. Now, these are common themes. You might think, well, it's just, even when kids draw pictures, they tend to draw those in there. Well, why do they don't draw the eye? They don't draw the fish. They don't draw the net. They don't write 108. They don't write 142. Even that circle with the dot, that's the sign for helium, sign for the sun as well. Now there's an upside down character there, and he's even got the compass and square hidden in there. The G, the I, it's all bloody there. All these numbers. Now, J.J. Abrams, back to Rambaldi from, what was his symbol? His symbol was the I. And again, you might wash all this up to coincidence, but it's clearly not. And we'll go further, because it's not just in these couple, but okay, Rambaldi's drawings, top left-hand corner, very reminiscent of Leonardo da Vinci. There's now the bottom left, we see one of his things. We can see, okay, well, what else is there to this? Now, among other things, Leonardo da Vinci worked with the flower of life. He studied it in quite some detail. So from the vesicle, where we got 153, that's the basic unit of geometry which builds the seed of life, and we can see it, quite clearly. It's in there. It's in multiple forms, equilateral triangles as well. Now, another illustration by Leonardo da Vinci is the fusion of male and female. The recent series I did on alchemy went into this into a little bit of detail, well, quite some detail, and covered over several centuries how this symbol goes. The union of the chemical wedding of sun and moon, as in by Christian Rosenkreuz. Now, again, just so many of these, so it's not just some sort of one-off, or it's again, I just did a whole series on this. It's in a reasonable amount of detail. The union of the male and the female is very alchemical. Just Newton's alchemy, all these other parts as well. And so, where are we now? As above, so below. It really is a thing. And now I'm going to pause. I have to do a little bit more work, and we're going to look at the Star Trek movie next. Okay, next we're going to have a look at the one of the more recent Star Trek movies, Into Darkness, which was directed by J.J. Abrams, which was sort of a reason why I made this particular video at the moment, because it was on TV the other day. I had it on in the background, and something struck me. Now, I was familiar with Fringe. I'd read up a little bit about lost. I was a fan of ALIAS back in the day, but now I'll play a little scene and we'll get an idea of what I'm talking about.
Stand down.
How many torpedoes?
Stand down!
The torpedoes, the weapons you threatened me with in your message, how many are there?
72.
Okay, so that clip cut off a second short, split second, but you still got it 42 torpedoes. Now those torpedoes actually contained his comrades, Khan in the movie, played by Benedict Cumberbatch. So 72, well, that brings us once more back. We can relate this to the golden ratio, the pentagram, and as we'll see, the number 108 as well. And so 72, both the pentagon and the pentagram, the 72 degrees are defining angles within this, which of course are defining angles of this perfect proportion. The pentagon, pentagram are perfect representations of phi, and just like 108, 72 degrees in trig cosine is phi over 2. But what's so important about 72? Well, just like 108, it's a number which is loaded with significance, built into so many pieces of architecture around the world, ancient and up to the modern, and I mean again cathedrals, major public buildings, not just some random shack. But to begin with, in geometry, so the pentagon, the pentagram, the tetrahedron, 720 degrees, the vesica, as we mentioned earlier, because that relates to so many aspects, and of course builds to the hexagon, 720 degrees being the inside angle of any six-sided poly. Now 72 degrees, 72 years per degree of precession, so that's the precession of the equinox, is a great year, which of course very important, but also the sun and the moon, not just in one measure but across multiple sets of measure systems, which is one of the beauties. Just like with 108, 72 was the precession is got to do with, well, sun, earth and stars, and also we're incorporating the moon into it. So sun, earth, moon and stars are very important features. Now again, this crosses cultures going back through time and into some unexpected places. For instance, for Mayan, the cartoon, 7,200 days, 72,000 years, 720,000 years, 72,000 years, defining the Dvapara Yuga. So Eastern in the Mesoamerican, now even just like there's some aspects to 108, but the heartbeat of someone resting should be 72 beats per minute, and the human body is made of 72% water. As we're even in weights and measures. Now, for instance, what's considered room temperature, 72 degrees Fahrenheit, 29537, so close to that 2953. Byzantine music, ancient Greco-Roman scales of weight, 72 grains a sextula. And just like 108, screen resolution 720p, and supposedly metric when it would be, you know, built in 100s. They're still using this particular system. Now, in ancient Egypt, 72 accomplices of Set conspired against Osiris and Thoth, or Hermes, or Mercury, the god of wisdom, weights and measures, etc., science. He won every 72nd day for the moon. Across the Far East, so we have both in literature, the Confucius, 72 disciples, and even in Shaolin, the number of postures in Big Luhan, 72. Now 108 was also included in there as well. So now in Kabbalist tradition, in Bible, so the Old Testament, King Solomon, 72 demons or jinn was captured by him. The Psalms, which connects to the Hermetic Code, Thelema and other parts. 72 books in the Catholic Bible. In Luke 10, Jesus sent out 72 disciples and 72...
Stand down.
How many torpedoes?
Stand down!
The torpedoes, the weapons you threatened me with in your message, how many are there?
72.
Now, there's another interesting aspect of this, because there were 72 torpedoes of his colleagues, co-conspirators, maybe you might call them, were in stasis or cryogenic freezing. So 72 plus Khan gives us 73. Set plus 72 conspirators gives us 73. Confucius plus his 72 disciples, 73. Jesus plus his 72 disciples, as described in Luke 10, we get 73. This is a huge import, because this will link us back to the golden ratio, 108, and so many other aspects. Now, in the beginning, I mentioned Norman Foster, Lord Norman Foster, who's basically the rock star architect in regards to this at the moment, though very few people are aware. Now, the Pyramid of Peace and Reconciliation in Astana, being a true pyramid, 200 and now including the base, 252 feet high, which is 72 Cremona yards, coincidentally. But the pyramid itself, not including the base, is 203 feet by 203 feet high, making it a true pyramid, giving it phi proportions once more. So, but this is, of course, not the end, because we're going to, well, J.J. Abrams is a artist in the media sense, but Tony Rosenthal, I.M. Pei, Norman Foster, and so many of these other people, or not so many, are very select few, the people who get the really prime jobs, very important jobs in very important locations, consistently and always use this particular method. Now, there are 55 nodes per triangular section on the Pyramid of Peace and Reconciliation. Now, 55 to begin with is a Fibonacci number, the 10th Fibonacci number, and 55 is also the 10th triangular number. So by that I mean 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4 up to plus 10 gives us 55, or the Fibonacci's 1, 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, 13, 21, 34, and 55. Now, of course, there are many other, look, here's a prepared card just to give you a concept of it. Now, in Sydney, the Royal Botanic Gardens, a pyramid which has now been replaced, which was the tropical, but the 55 nodes on the Pyramid of Peace and Reconciliation in Astana by Norman Foster. But in the top right-hand corner, we see the underside of the Canberra Carillon, or the bell tower. Canberra is Australia's version of Washington. The whole city, from its street plan to all its buildings, are completely loaded, absolutely loaded with these numbers. I'll try to remember to paste some links to that in description, because I've gone through all these things in detail in earlier videos. Now, so we see what the Carillon, which is actually three fused obelisks as well. So it has an Egyptian theme there, but it's not necessarily easily visible from the ground. But if you see the aerial views of it, it's clearly three obelisks. Now, the underside of it, you can start to see a geometric pattern. So I've just highlighted it with the dots. So it creates 10 levels. Plus 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4, add them all up, you get 55 nodes, and there just happens to be 55 bells in this Carillon as well, a double reference to this very important Fibonacci triangular number, which is incorporated in so many other places. And so again, whether it's well, so many places, but even how it connects to something I mentioned on the Tetragrammaton, or the Pythagorean Tetractys, which builds a triangular number system. So it's very much related to the Pythagorean number schools, and of course Phidias and the golden ratio going back to that period, 4th, 5th century BC. Now it lends itself to be extended out, because you can see how it's cut, and to lead us to this six-pointed star, or the Star of David, and plus many other. Now, there just happens to be 73 nodes when you extend this out. Now, if you remember, Khan plus his 72, Set plus 72, Jesus plus 72, Confucius plus 72, crossing cultures, crossing time, as with 108 and all these other particular numbers. And so there we see just a reminder of it. Now, especially in regards to fringe and the golden ratio, and especially in regards to lost and the use of the number 108. Well, how does this connect? Well, of course, 108 degrees in trig, all the golden number, 55 being a Fibonacci. Well, how does 73 connect? Also 72, but what about 73? Well, the 73 nodes that I've highlighted there creates 108 triangles. This is it. This is the this is why these numbers are so important, so beautiful, so repeated, because they cross different forms. It's not just in, for instance, in angles. It's not just in the basic geometry. For instance, that six-pointed star emerges from the hexagon or the vesica. You see what I mean? It all bleeds back into each other. But even more beautiful than that, so the 55 nodes, which gives us also the hexagon on the inside of it is 37, or the Star of David is 73. 37 is the 12th prime, 73 is the 21st prime. You just invert and we get the same numbers. Now these are the only prime numbers which emerge out of this particular set of patterns, and they just happen to be these beautiful ones, and of course also leads us to 108. Now that's not all, because the Carillion itself at 164 feet high, 27.3, that's the same height as the Arc de Triomphe in Paris, which in itself has other references to 108, 288 and all these other really beautiful numbers. But the bell tower, the housing for the bells is 1008 inches high to 1440 inches high. 144 the Fibonacci, the 12 Fibonacci, 144 is 12 squared. So just like 55 is the 10th triangular and the 10th Fibonacci, 144 is, well, the 12 squared plus many other aspects, and of course the 12 Fibonacci number. So 108, 72, Star Trek, Fringe, Lost, Alias, all coming back now in the infinite sea of... Clearly there is a pattern going on here. Now, quite frankly, if you sort of think that this is done by accident, well, you know, I don't know, then there is no patterns. There are no patterns anywhere if you can't see this. Now, I just got to say as well, so this is a beautiful pattern. This is part of the old Hermetic Code, which is built into the basis of temples going back to, as we saw earlier, the Great Pyramid, extending across the world, extending across time. Beautiful number. All is number, all is mind, all is consciousness, has Pythagoras said. And again, we're seeing ancient Egyptian myth, and that all these different schools, these different patterns, these different numbers, these different measurements, these angles, these proportions, Sumerian, Indian, ancient Egyptian, going through to the cathedrals of in Europe. Also, you'll find it across Mesoamerica. Very much in the developing from the Rosicrucians through to the modern Freemasons now, connecting sun, earth, moon and stars through not just symbolic but also through maths. And so we have the same thing. Now it's all just a coincidence. Well, you know, Leonardo, Isaac Newton, Edmund Gunter, all these other giants of the fathers, the parents, you know, of the modern age. And J.J. Abrams is a hermeticist, just like Norman Foster, I.M. Pei, Tony Rosenthal or Tom Bass or these other artists and sculptors who dominate. Arnaldo Pomodoro, all these other people. So Alias, Fringe, Lost, Star Trek. Now I'm going to put a link to Cloverfield, because J.J. Abrams was responsible for Cloverfield, and there's some amazing stuff that his hardcore fans have uncovered, because he's written a code and hidden clues and Easter eggs and all these things across the internet. And so, yeah, there'll be a few links in the description. I'll also try to remember to post all the links I promised in regards to the videos I've done, such as in regards to Epic of Gilgamesh, the floods, Tony Rosenthal, I.M. Pei, Norman Foster, and I've also done a whole series in regards to Australia as well. So, like going back to the mid to late 19th century, Edmund Blackett and James Barnett repeatedly incorporated these their numbers: 108, 153, 72. You see them over and over again, even in the street plans. You know, tip of a hat to Mrs. Elizabeth Macquarie. Governor Macquarie, of course, the 66 feet wide roads, streets with a 42 feet carriageway. James Bradfield, another example, because 144, 55 and the Fibonacci number 377 is built into the one repeatedly, not just once or twice, but repeatedly built into many aspects of one of the most iconic buildings of the world, not just some random thing. This is all across the world.
Landfill.
Let me guess, 4 years ago.
Yeah, but look at it. It's still completely random to my eyes. There's no way to...
I am ready to present a theory. Snails, nautilus shells, ram's horns, these all have one thing in common: Fibonacci's golden spiral.
I'll be damned, Walter. That's it.
I believe the source of these time slips must be located in the center of the spiral.
Okay, so he might not be an architect, he might not be a sculptor, but J.J. Abrams is working in working with the Hermetic Code, with these symbols that most people would just immediately connect to Masons, but it's actually much older, much broader, much wider than that. As above, so below. So with that, hope you enjoyed. Have a good one. I might do a follow-up, but probably not. Anyway, have a good one.